All right, let's deepen the discussion now on security in Nigeria. As security expert Kabiru Adamu joins us now on Newsnight. Thank you so much for joining us. So many issues really to be raised. But what do you make first of about the MO, the modus operandi of this terrorist? Why Kaduna in the first place? What exactly do you think their message is? And when the Transport Minister Rotimi Amechi says this could have been avoided if the process of releasing funds had been fast-tracked, what do you make of all of this?
Thank you, Ngozi and Adeswa. Good evening. Loaded question. You've asked me so many questions in one statement. Let me start with the last question, which is regarding the Minister of Transportation. My understanding is that he's a part of the government. He's a member of the cabinet member. I'm aware that a couple of months ago, he did, after the first bombing incident, which was in October last year, he did come out to say he had submitted a proposal to the Federal Executive Council for the implementation of a surveillance solution on the rail line. Now, we never had anything after that until he came out yesterday to express his displeasure, his frustration, as it were. I'm a little bit surprised because, frankly, like I said, he's a member of the cabinet. He probably has a better understanding of why that solution was not approved. Now, if as a minister, he's saying that he understands that there is a vulnerability, because that's how I understood his statement to mean. He understood there was a vulnerability, yet the service continued. And this, for me, I'm not a lawyer, but as a security practitioner, speaks clearly of negligence. You knew that there was something that was supposed to be done. It wasn't done, and yet you allowed that service to continue. So it appears that the victims actually have a case if they go to court for compensation on the basis of that statement by the minister. I think as a Nigerian, we should reach a stage where responsibility and accountability should be the guiding word in this instance. That statement, as far as I'm concerned, clearly speaks of these two elements, accountability and responsibility. Now, these other parts of your question have to do with why Kaduna. There are several reasons. As a security practitioner who runs a consultancy, I'm aware that there are several threat factors in Kaduna. One of those threat factors are the gunmen who operate within Kaduna. Now, these gunmen can be divided into three. Number one are the so-called bandits. You can decide to call them bandits or terrorists, as they were. The second one are the criminal groups who are also active within Kaduna. And then more recently, because we're in a political season, there is a lot of suggestion and in fact, with some information indicating that there may be a political angle to some of the developments within Kaduna. And the reasons for that are not far-fetched. The level of socioeconomic and socio-political grievance in Kaduna are quite high. Now, if you tie that to the fact that Kaduna is probably the most garrisoned state in Nigeria, the number of security formations in Kaduna, I think, is non-comparable to any other location. So you can understand why this is not just an ordinary attack. The motive, even though whoever is behind that attack is yet to state the motive, appears to be beyond what is what the normal criminal elements would do. A real investigation that looks into intelligence and picks up the details would tell us what the motive of these persons are. But beyond all of that, I think what has been shown clearly is that this issue of ungoverned spaces, which we've always talked about. I've been on your program severally, and we've talked about ungoverned spaces. Nothing is yet to be done about these ungoverned spaces. These guys came out from these ungoverned spaces, from what we're hearing, drove in several vehicles, came to that location, planted the bomb they planted, and then, of course, carried out the attack, and unfortunately were able to abduct several Nigerians at the moment. So clearly, they exploited gaps that existed both within the train security arrangement as well as the security arrangement in the state as a whole.
Okay, so you've spoken to the issue of negligence, but how about intelligence? Because this is the second attack on the train or on the track in the space of 5 to 6 months. Where is intelligence here? We also saw 48 hours before the attack on Monday, an attack at the Kaduna airport. Speak to intelligence here. What do you make of that?
Well, incidentally, that's my field. We, as far as we know, in the first attack there was intelligence. In this last attack, the one that happened on Monday, there are suggestions that there was intelligence, even though I'm not privy to that. But irrespective of whether there was intelligence or not, as a practitioner, if we wanted to gather the intelligence, we would have been able to gather it. Like I mentioned, these guys moved from location A to where they carried out the attack. And from what we're hearing, they moved in a convoy of vehicles. And not only that, they were able to plant an IED, an improvised explosive device, on the railing track. They took their time in doing that. Somebody, especially within the communities around that point zero where the incident happened, noticed them. Now, it means we failed in harvesting the intelligence. The intelligence was there, but we probably didn't harvest it. I'm also aware that there were several statements, both from the Kaduna state government, suggesting and, in fact, warning the residents that they are aware that terrorist groups are going to carry out bombing incidents, even though they did not mention the train, but they gave certain locations. Then even the State Security Service released a warning, as it were, indicating that the possibility. What we didn't see is what we call actionable intelligence that pinpointed when, where, why, and how all of this would happen. But for a critical infrastructure like a rail line, it would have been very, very obvious that this could be one of the targets that would be attacked by these guys. And so the commensurate level of security protection that should have been adequate to prevent where the attack happened should have been there. And all these are components of intelligence. Suffice to say, I do not think we made use of both the intelligence gathering, intelligence processing, as well as the dissemination capabilities that should have prevented this attack. There is room for improvement in all of these areas that I mentioned.
What do you think, Dr. Adamu, could have been responsible for this absence or lack of use or harvest, in your words, of intel? Can you really rule out sabotage from within? Is that likely to be a possibility? And in terms of way forward, a sustainable way of pushing back this terrorism in Nigeria, especially in the Northwest, would you subscribe to El Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State, his recommendation? He's saying just flatten, bombard this hideouts of the terrorists. Is that a way out?
Okay, let me start with your first question. What is responsible for either the failure of intelligence or the failure to use intelligence? These are two different things. Now, in terms of the failure of intelligence, I think the focus of the intelligence, unfortunately, sometimes determines the collection priorities by the various bodies. If the body language, for instance, of the recipient of that intelligence, if their interests are in other areas, then those agencies that are responsible for the collection and the dissemination of intelligence, that's what they will focus on. So as an example, we're in a political season, and most of them will be centered around collecting intelligence to protect interests that are surrounding the political season. Again, it's absolutely important that we, take note of the fact that Mr. President severally has prioritized this action. He has issued statements, and so I want to think that the presidential directive can be translated into a tasking order for the various agencies that are involved in security. Now, if that didn't happen, then the responsibility would be within the coordinating elements of the intelligence bodies. And these are the Office of the National Security Advisor, the Minister of Interior, Minister of Defense, Minister of Police Affairs. They are the ones who are supposed to translate that into actionable items that would allow the various departments that are responsible for intelligence to go about collecting and then disseminating them as the case may be. Now, if that's not the case, then perhaps the case is a failure of the use of that intelligence. It's possible that these agencies did provide the intelligence, but then somehow that was not acted upon. Now, that is why it's absolutely important that an investigation be conducted. When that first bomb happened last year in October, perhaps an investigation took place. where's the report of that investigation? If nothing happened, then in this instance, we need to run an investigation to find out. So many things went wrong. I've talked about the incident itself. Then even after the incident, we do have an emergency preparedness plan in the country. And I'm surprised that it was more or less the military that only responded, where the several other agencies that are involved in this emergency preparedness policy or plan that we have. How come they did not respond to go and, I mean, about 400 citizens or 900, depending on what report you want to go with, in a train. And then we're hearing only the military, and to an extent the police responded. The several others that are involved should have responded. And the last element is actually the forensic investigation. And in this footage you are showing at the moment, it makes me a little bit worried. That train should be cordoned off. There is a lot of evidence that can be gathered that would help in the prosecution of whoever carried that attack. If we allow that evidence to be tampered with, then it would make it a little bit difficult to prosecute whoever is behind that. So many things went wrong, and only an investigation into how, what, when, all those imperatives would determine all of that, and then hopefully it would allow us to put in place measures that would prevent a reoccurrence of all of this. Now, to your larger question on how to stop all of this, I am of the opinion that we need to start looking at the possibility of decentralizing security and improving the efficacy of our criminal justice system to arrest offenders and to punish them. All of these matters are very wide, and time will not allow me to go into them, but I think we need to enhance the administration of criminal justice system so that offenders are arrested and they are punished. And then lastly, the ungoverned spaces that I talked about, we need to dominate those ungoverned spaces and prevent their usage by the bad guys.
Thank you so much, as always, for your analysis, Dr. Kabiru Adamu, a security expert. We do appreciate your time on the news tonight.